Good morning, everyone. Thank you for getting up so early on a Sunday morning. Thank you very much to Tom, Ron, and the crew, and of course Mary, for having us here. Insert a DVD of Press Media, but see, video is everywhere, isn't it? It's very important. So great. So this morning, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a little bit of time to really talk about the requirements and challenges in a higher resolution media creation environment and what we've seen over the last year really change and really go crazy. So you ask yourself a simple question: what does it take to edit, finish, and archive in a high resolution world where today we're talking about HD being the beginning, a lot of 3D, a lot of 4K, a lot of collaboration, people just moving things around constantly, really working on content and moving content everywhere possible. And really, it's a simple answer. It's proper planning, proper execution. It always is. But the problem is that the complexity that we're facing today is much greater than it's ever been. And while I might be one person who can put a few videos on YouTube every day, or maybe a few times a week, there's a lot of people putting thousands of videos on YouTube. But really, when we talk about professional video creation, it's much more complex. And I realized that there really are three golden rules for future-proofing, because that's what everybody's worried about. It's not really worrying about what you have to do today. It's worrying about, how do I manage this over the next 3 years? How do I ensure that what I'm buying and what I'm implementing over the next 3 years is really going to work? So I think the thing that we've always learned in storage, and anybody here disbelieve this, that no matter what you believe your capacity will be in the next 3 years, you'll be wrong? I mean, it's true. I mean, we see this all the time. The other problem is that we're really faced with, what does capacity mean? Now, Tom talked a little bit about Thailand and the floods there, and he showed us some nice pictures of the Western Digital building. I have some pictures where people are swimming around, grabbing hard drive components. It's really interesting, inside the building. So it's really kind of crazy, and the numbers I heard, and Tom can confirm this, I heard that the shortage was about, we lost about 20 to 28% of all the available hard drives in the world. Now that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you walk into a Best Buy or a Costco and you're just going to buy a hard drive and they say one per customer, it's a little different than what we were used to just a few years ago. So what that's really done is that's made people look at other things like solid-state disk and say, well, maybe I can live with a slightly less capacity, but I can actually build solid-state disk systems, and maybe that's the alternative we need to really get it kicking along and going. But overall, capacity just continues to increase, and it really gets crazy. And that's one of the golden rules for future-proofing, is plan on having, I think Bang talked about this a little bit, scaling of your capacity. It's really important. And the other thing is, if it sounds too good to be true, it's probably truly a technological dead end. There's just a lot of complexity out there. And I think that part of the problem that most people have today is that you want to go with the brightest shiny object you can, and for the most part, if it sounds like it's going to do everything, there's an old saying. They talked about the medicine show in the 1800s, right? You take this medicine, if you have a cold, it'll cure it. If you want a cold, it'll give it to you. I mean, a lot of the technology we talk about is really going to lead to technological dead ends. And so I'll get through this one really easy, is open always wins. So what do I mean by that? It means that open gives you flexibility to stay away from proprietary solutions, because proprietary solutions usually lead you down that technological dead end. So really, the meat of it is planning and executing. And so what does the future mean? Well, the future means that storage issues today are not just around capacity. And when we talk about specifics, when we talk about media creation, it's really all about what the performance aspects mean in a media creation world, and why, in particular, Active Storage, we spend so much time optimizing constantly for changing open systems. And it's really about latency is more important than throughput, and consistent delivery of data is a must. And I'm really fortunate today to have the experience of knowing what we mean by proper headroom can no longer be ignored. Because what we have is we have a number of customers in the media and entertainment space. In fact, that's all we do is media and entertainment. And they are constantly changing their workflow. You know, we go in there and we work with them very carefully to figure out what the next 3 years are going to look like. And 3 months later, they call us and go, by the way, we added this or we added that and we changed that. And I'm fortunate today to have two of my largest customers in the audience, and one of them runs a major sports broadcasting network. He's the director of all their IT, and I sat with him for a minute this morning because I wanted to understand what his workflow really entailed. So I think this is kind of interesting. So he just gave me some names. He said, okay, on a typical day, I ingest a lot. And just so you know, they have an archive today of about 4.1 petabytes on a spectrologic robot, and it's moving up to about 7 in the middle of the year. So it's not like they're a really small organization. So he said, well, first let's talk about ingest. First thing I use a product called EBS, then I use a product called Fork, then I use the K-Pros, then I use the Grass Valley K2s. That kind of gets us in there, but you got to talk about the cameras. So I have 17 formats today. Mainly I use the P2, I use Red and 1K, Red and 2K, Red and 4K, Red and 5K. I use the new Ariel XAs. I'm also shooting a little bit on Super 16, and you know, since my particular business talks about a lot of movement, you know what a GoPro is? Well, we've got those all over the place. So in the end of the day, I'm basically importing all that. Then of course I get it and I have to transcode it. And so the transcode's easy. I use Vantage and I use Episode Engine. Really simple. And then for editing, we just happen to be a Final Cut Pro shop, so we use Final Cut Pro, but we have to log everything because they have a MAM as well. So they use CatDV and they use Fork for logging. Then of course they have to archive, so they use Frontports Digital and of course that Spectralogic robot, and when it's all said and done at the end of the day, they have to play it out because they're a network. So they play it out on EBS and Fork. And in the end of the day, it's all connected to a single repository of storage. And I can't remember how many petabytes they have today, but it's quite a bit of spinning disk on active. So we're really excited about that. But they call us quite often and they say, remember that little list you had? Now I'm going to hold the list because in about 3 weeks, I'm sure that list will double. And that's really one of the biggest challenges that we see. And so when I say proper headroom can no longer be ignored, it's because the list grows and grows. And in a tapeless world, the archive has to start in the ingest. And that's the one thing that we talk about all the time, is that in a tapeless world, I can't take that tape and put it on the shelf. Mary always talks about digital asset management. It's not only finding it, it's making sure you can still keep it. So it's really, really important that we have to do that. Ron, can you get kicked over for some reason? Oh, there we go. There we go. The other thing I think that's important is ad hoc storage networks, they can't keep up. What do I mean by that? Well, when we went from this transition from analog to digital, we went from digital SD to HD, we started seeing people build everything electronically and what we call a file-based workflow. People built ad hoc networks, meaning that they add a capacity and they add a performance as they need it, and they build a single repository, usually a SAN. And they said, well, my performance is good, my capacity is good, and if I scale, I'll just add more. Well, the problem they ran into is, how do you manage that? Not just managing the assets, but managing the storage. And then they said, well, I'm going to add SANs and I'm going to add NAS, and now all of a sudden a single repository turned into many. And the problem with that is you need to manage your data on every level. And it's damn slow to go find it. So you need some kind of asset manager that starts when you ingest to when you leave. The other thing is all components need to integrate well. Now, a lot of the people here, up here with me, are good friends, and we all work together really well. It's not always true in the rest of the world. But we need to really integrate and all think about what we need to do, because in an open world, if you don't integrate, you die. The other problem is you can't get locked in. So while most of us would love to use everything that we do, we don't want you to lock in. We want you to be able to have a choice. And we also think it must be a platform for the future. So we're actually here, and tomorrow we're going to introduce something new, and we're really excited about it. So if you get a chance, stop by. We'll talk to you about it. Thank you very much. Have a great day here.